In Cuba, the day of popular referendum for the approval of the new family code moves forward. Over 3 million citizens have participated in the referendum by noon. In Brazil, a massive event called Rio Embraces Lula takes place in support of the former president 1 week before the elections. The referendum on the accession of the Kherson and Zaporizhia regions, together with the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics, to the Russian Federation continues in Ukraine. More than half of the citizens have taken part in the referendum. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Cuba, over 3 million citizens have participated in the referendum on the new family code during the first half of the day, according to the National Electoral Council. According to the latest report issued by Maria Esther Bacallao Martinez, Secretary of the National Electoral Council, as of 11 a.m. local time, 3,267,799 voters had gone to the polls to exercise their right to vote, which represents 37.03% of the electoral roll. Bacallao confirmed that the electoral roll will be updated during the course of the day, and the results of the referendum based on this update will be announced at a later press conference. Likewise, Bacallao pointed out that the final results of the overseas referendum held last Sunday, September 18th, will be informed at that conference. Miguel Díaz-Canel, President of Cuba, exercised his right to vote in early hours of this morning. The President attended polling stations number 3 of the 57th Electoral District in the capital, where he participated in the process along with his wife, Liz Cuesta Peraza. Over 23,000 polling stations open all over the country so that Cubans can exercise their right to vote.
That this is going to be an intense day, which we reach as part of a result of a process that had to do with a fair, necessary, updated and modern norm that gives rights and guarantees to everyone, to all diversities, to all families, to all people of all creeds. It has gone through a broad popular process that brought about modifications. Remember that we work with over 25 versions of this. I believe that this is a code that started, first of all, from the social debate, because we have been recognizing in the last years that our society has become more heterogeneous.
In statements to the media after voting, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel expressed his confidence that the majority of the Cuban people will vote in favor of the new family code.
It was based on studies, on situations and court cases, on the daily experiences of different types of families, on events that have taken place at a certain moment, on the personal experiences of each person. In fact, you saw the program we had on another day. I believe it gives a tremendous richness and a very wide range. It's not a process. I don't believe that the expectation is that there will be a unanimous vote. I do believe that there will be a majority vote. The majority of people will vote in favor of the code.
Raul Castro, leader of the Cuban Revolution, exercised his right to vote today in the referendum on the new family code, which is being held throughout the country. The General of the Army attended the Electoral Council number 2 of Playa Municipality in the capital, where he also talked with several voters about Tropical Storm Ian, which is approaching the Caribbean island. Cuban citizens highlighted the importance of the new family code for the good living of future generations.
It is a code for the future above all. This is not a code for us. Today we are only going to have the enormous challenge of approving it and starting the steps of its implementations. This is going to be a code that will be fully enjoyed by the next generations, and that we already see the real transformation in our society that this new code of families will imply. So it will be a code for me and for my family, for the little ones at home, for those children who today are still children and don't vote, because it's the legacy that we are going to leave them. A family code that protects them, that transforms them, and that will contribute significantly to their full development as persons in a free country.
For me, it is very important because they are giving us the possibility of being part of the future of this country. We are giving the possibility to future generations to live in a Cuba with more rights, with more inclusiveness, and that is very important.
Let us review the contents and purposes of the new family code.
Through the consultation of September the 25th, the people of Cuba will decide whether to adopt a new family code designed to increase civil rights within the framework of the social transformations of recent years in Cuba and the world. The text, composed of 11 titles and 474 articles, establishes solidarity and affection as the pillars on which family relationships are based, and conceives the family as a union of people linked by affective, sentimental, and psychological ties without distinction of gender. The proposal emphasizes special support for women as the caretakers in most families and provider for the economic value of work in homes, as well as economic protection for those who work as housekeepers and caretakers. 4 types of filiation are contemplated in the code: natural procreation, adoption, assisted reproduction techniques, and bonds resulting from social affectivity, a concept that recognizes and regulates multiparentality both in birth and at later stage. It also mandates the creation of institutions to manage sanctions for domestic violence against vulnerable persons and extends rights to sexual diversities. Among the main detractors of the initiative are the religious sectors, especially the Conference of Catholic Bishops of Cuba, which consider that the text introduces gender ideology in the legislation and deforms the natural basis of the family. The debate on equal marriage in Cuba was also on the table during the drafting of the 2019 Constitution. At the same time, its approval was not possible due to the intense rejection of the Christian churches, among other social sectors.
Let us take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. In Brazil, a massive event called Rio Embraces Lula takes place in support of the former president 1 week before the elections. The event is currently taking place at the Portela Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, one of the most competitive places due to its electoral importance. The leader of Brazil of Hope coalition, accompanied by the main figures of his movement, confirmed his willingness to work for the most needy and compare his administration at the leadership of the country with that of the current president, especially in economic aspects and social protection policies. Brazil's Carnival takes place in February, but on this last weekend before the presidential elections, revelers came out to the streets to show their support for their favorite candidates. From Olinda, our correspondent Brian Meir has more.
Across Brazil, people are enjoying the last Sunday before this year's elections, when many people will travel back to their hometowns to vote for president, vice president, and members of Congress. In the northeastern city of Olinda, a traditional carnival group associated with the landless workers movement brought thousands out to the streets.
Eu Acho É Pouco is an Olinda carnival group that always takes a political position and is not going to stop doing that at a moment like this. Our lives will be better with Lula.
Putting a social movement carnival group on the streets during election season is a political act, an extension of the canvassing that activists have been doing for the last month on the streets, in the schools and factories, to guarantee that the Brazilian far-right loses control of the presidency and Congress.
We are here today campaigning for the MST's first candidate in a carnival parade that is a historic field of a battle for the Brazilian people. It's important for us to be here, occupying the streets, so that we can elect our president and remove the genocidal one who is in office right now.
In a climate of rising political violence, a simple act of coming out to the streets to sing and dance and to wear the party colors sends a signal to the far right that Lula's supporters refuse to be intimidated.
Olinda's carnival is always a very political act. We are out here today to show our choice, which is for Lula and another Brazil.
Brian Meir, teleSUR, Olinda.
In the United States, the state of emergency declared in Florida due to the possible impact of Tropical Storm Ian, currently in the waters of the Central Caribbean Sea, is putting the people of the region on alert. In an official statement, the territory's Governor Ron DeSantis extended the warning previously issued on Saturday to cover all of Florida and urged the citizens to prepare themselves before the arrival of the storm, which he said has the potential to turn into a major hurricane. In this regard, he said that coordinations are underway with all state and local government partners to track the potential impacts of the storm, given the risk of storm surge, flooding, dangerous winds, and other adverse weather conditions throughout the area. The country's President Joe Biden also declared a state of emergency to allow federal agencies to coordinate relief and provide aid. In Canada, authorities declared a state of emergency in several regions after Hurricane Fiona impact. After making landfall, the federal government decreed the measure for the provinces located to the east of the country. The meteorological phenomenon caused power outages in more than 50,000 homes in Nova Scotia, while on the island of Newfoundland, a person was reported missing after being swept out to sea with his home. In this context, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, expressed concern about the strong impact of the meteorological phenomenon on the Atlantic coast of the country. In El Salvador, environmental organizations denounced the contamination of the waters of Lake Suchiltlan, the Salvadoran lake of more than 13,000 hectares, which also serves as a reservoir for a hydroelectric plant and is considered of great international importance by UNESCO, is in a critical situation according to environmental organizations. They denounce a blanket of plastic, including bottles, containers, and all kinds of plastic materials, in spite of the fact that workers of the hydroelectric plant, as well as residents of the vicinity, constantly collaborate to remove this material from the waters of the lake. The Salvadoran Minister of the Environment, Fernando Lopez, assured that every day in the country 4,200 tons of waste are generated, of which some 1,200 end up in rivers, beaches, or streets of the country. Super Typhoon Noru slammed into the Philippines on Sunday, battering the heavily populated main island of Luzon with strong winds and heavy rains that have forced thousands of people to flee their homes. The storm was packing maximum sustained winds of 195 kilometers an hour as it charged towards the archipelago nation. Noru, the strongest storm to hit the Philippines this year, hit about 100 kilometers northeast of Manila. Emergency personnel braced for the possibility of strong winds and heavy rain battering the capital. First evacuations were underway in some high-risk areas of the metropolis, including impoverished communities living in flimsy shacks along rivers.
We had to do preemptive evacuation because we estimate that the storm will arrive when people are sleeping, and we don't want a repeat of what happened during Typhoon Kixena and the southwest monsoon when people were caught off guard and they couldn't evacuate. That's difficult because people may lose lives.
I evacuated the house that I'm living in because I'm scared. The floods there get really high. I don't want a repeat of what happened to me before.
We have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In the Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Lugansk regions, residents participate for the third day in a row in a consultation on the accession of these territories to the Russian Federation. The referendum in the self-proclaimed People's Republics of Donetsk and Lugansk, together with the regions of Zaporizhia and Kherson, is taking place amidst hostilities from the Ukrainian army, which has caused new loss of lives in these localities. The elections are expected to last until September 27th, although during the first 2 days the turnout has exceeded 55% of the voters in Donetsk, 45% in Lugansk, 35% in Zaporizhia, and 31% in Kherson. The referendum is taking place amid aggressions of the Ukrainian forces on population centers, which intensified after the beginning of the referendum. On Sunday, the governments of Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan reached an agreement to end their border disputes and return to a normal situation. In Kyrgyzstan, authorities expressed their hope in the fulfillment of the agreement reached between the two nations. They also confirmed that those evacuated after the recent clashes between the two countries on the border can return to their homes. In addition, they also assured that the parties will withdraw military personnel from up to 8 posts in the zone of conflict. The clashes between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan started in mid-September and have resulted in over 100 dead and almost 230 wounded among civilians and military personnel of both sides. Nepal authorities consider trade with Russia in local currencies. The ambassador of Nepal to Russia, Milan Rajtuladar, stated that Moscow and Nepal could establish bilateral mechanisms of settlements in national currencies similar to the one between Russia and India, which allows exchanges between the Russian ruble and the Indian rupee. He assured that the problems in the transactions between the two countries could be solved with the appropriate banking services. In that sense, he stated that to achieve this goal, the central banks of Russia and Nepal should work together. The government in Moscow has repeatedly called on all other nations to create a new world financial system in which exchanges would be made with regional currencies. Citizens mobilized in the streets of the country this Sunday in Iran to condemn the acts of vandalism promoted from outside. According to local media in the city of Isfahan, the participants chanting slogans in rejection of these unbridled actions while demanding forceful actions by the police and the judiciary against the rioters of the Quran and the sacred values. At this ceremony, those once mobilized also said their last farewell to 3 repatriated martyrs whose identity are unknown, but who were martyred during the sacred defense between 1980 and 1988. Meanwhile, in the cities of Shiraz and Rasht, the Iranians ratified their loyalty to the leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, and the ideals of the resistance and called for the punishment of those who desecrated the national religious symbols. Top Egyptian and Sudanese authorities discussed in Cairo the situation regarding the filling and operation of the Grand Renaissance Dam built by Ethiopia on the Nile River. A statement from the Egyptian presidency detailed that the issue was discussed during a meeting between President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and the head of the Sudanese Sovereign Transitional Council, Lieutenant General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. The two countries' tensions with Ethiopia escalated over the past year following Addis Ababa's decision to begin filling and operating the dam, which both Cairo and Khartoum consider a danger to their water reserves. In response, Egypt and Sudan are seeking to sign a binding agreement on the management of the dam, which is rejected by Ethiopia. Kenyan Eliud Kipchoge has beaten his own world marathon record by 30 seconds, running 2 hours, 1 minute and 9 seconds in Berlin on Sunday. At the halfway point, the back-to-back Olympic champion in Rio and Tokyo looked set to become the first to officially run under the elusive 2-hour mark, but despite slowing slightly, the 37-year-old held on the best his own record from Berlin in 2018. Kipchoge became just the second man to win 4 Berlin marathons, joining Ethiopian Haile Gebrselassie, who owned the event from 2006 to 2009. He boasts an unmatched record over the marathon, having now won 15 of his 17 career outings over the event, including not only his 2 Olympic triumphs, but also 10 World Marathon Major victories.
My plan, actually, my strategy to all my team was to run anything called a coast record.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And if that coast record actually could be a second, then we appreciate. If that coast record can be a world record, then that's a big appreciation. I don't know when will be the limits, but as the days go, we'll know where the limits are. I don't know, but I think that the finishing point is still not yet seen.
Yeah.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. From you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram. Now you can also follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and much more. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.